So here I am in Hansel, my all-time favourite Toyota Surf. I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk about the important issue of medical and dental here in Paraguay. It's a question that we often get asked. What are the standards of dental and medical? And it's a really important question. And when I woke up this morning, I was really keen to make the video, and then I looked out the window and saw it was a pretty drizzly day and thought the light wasn't the best, and decided that I was going to actually postpone it to tomorrow. But then when I thought about the subject matter, I thought a crappy day is probably the perfect time to talk about my two favourite people groups. Just in recent days, we've had a really great outcome when it comes to dental. I wanted to talk to you about that, but also share with you some experiences we've had with medical and also just some other things that we've heard. When we first arrived in Guatemala, happened to take the kids to a dentist there. We were pleasantly surprised with the dental care that we found in Guatemala City. They were quite high standard, very professional. But we received some bad news. One of our children actually required some reasonably significant correction to an issue relating to their bite. It was something that took us by surprise because we'd always taken the kids to the dentist in the place where we were previously living, and we thought that everything was reasonably okay, but as it turned out, it wasn't. But what complicated the issue was that we weren't altogether sure that we were going to stay in Guatemala. In fact, at that time, I think we were really pretty much settled on the fact that at some stage we would probably move on from there. So we're in a conundrum as to what do we do if we start the treatment in that country. How does that translate when we go to another country? I don't know enough about the topic to really understand it or to really make a judgment like that, because I don't know how things are done in Guatemala as opposed to, say, another country that we might have been intending to go to. And there was some ability to delay the actions that we needed to take, so we decided to put it off because, as I say, we knew that we were going to move on. So as it turned out, we moved on to Nicaragua, where we stayed there for some months, and then ultimately to Paraguay, where we are now. So when we decided that this was the place where we wanted to live, we went to an orthodontist, had some initial treatment, but weren't really happy with what we saw to be the standards of that particular practice. So I got some advice from a X-ray facility here in Qroo and asked them who is the best orthodontist in town, and they gave me the details. So we duly went to that orthodontist. It was only a handful of months ago, and we had braces fitted to the top and bottom. To our delight, when we initially went to this referred orthodontist, just the visual of the practice was just, we were blown away. It was every bit as clean and professional as anything that we'd ever seen. It was definitely better than what I had been used to back in the place where I used to live. So we were really enthusiastic and hopeful that it would work out well. Once the braces were fitted, every 2 weeks we had to return. Over the course of these months, we've seen an incredible improvement in the condition, to the point where it looks like maybe as early as next year it might be totally sorted, or at least very well on the way to being so. And it's definitely transforming the issue. So we're really over the moon about it. It's such a big relief to have that sorted. To have the braces fitted, it cost us around about $192, just short of $200 US. That was a complete fit out, top and bottom. And then every 2 weeks we return for an adjustment, and that's less than $20 US each time we go to have them adjusted. It's absolutely extraordinary how cheap it is compared to other places we've been. I can truly say that our expectations have been blown away. The level of care has been absolutely exceptional. We've spoken to one of our friends who came to Paraguay and had an urgent extraction that needed to be attended to. Initially, they went to a dentist here and they were really quite mortified at the standards. They had a little bit of work done, but they didn't have the extraction done. But then they went to the practice that we use, and they were absolutely delighted with what the treatment was. I think that the takeaway from our experiences and some of the people we've spoken to is that you really need to look around, and the standards can vary tremendously. My sense is that there's probably not anywhere near the same oversight in terms of standardisation of service in Paraguay as what there may be in perhaps other countries. But it's not to say that you can't find a great service. There is a saying in Paraguay, and I think it's very true in this instance, is you can find anything here, you've just got to look. Unlike maybe some other countries where you can just expect a great service or a superior service wherever you go, that's not necessarily going to be the case in Paraguay. You're going to find a great variation of standard. So it's really up to you to make the inquiries, do your due diligence, ask around, do whatever you have to do, and just accept that it's not a given just because someone's got a sign on their door that they're an expert in something, that it's going to be a great experience. You really have to make sure that you've done your homework. And if you do, chances are things will turn out really well. In regards to medical, we've had one experience here, and that was I had an injured elbow. I thought I might have cracked it. We went to a hospital. It was a Mennonite hospital not too far from here. My elbow was x-rayed, I was examined, and the issue was diagnosed. It was nothing major. Throughout the experience, we were really highly impressed with the level of care, the professionalism. The doctor was definitely every bit as responsive as any doctor that we've had any experience with in the places where we've once resided. So once again, we had a great level of service. That piggybacks what a lot of other people have told us. Different people that we know have had different issues they've had to get sorted. Most of what we've heard has been very positive. But once again, just like with dental, medical's exactly the same. You've got to do your homework. It's not necessarily going to be that every clinic or doctor is going to be of the same standard. One issue that I do think needs mentioning is the issue of ambulance care. My understanding is that at least where we're living in Qroo, the advice I've been given is that if you want quality ambulance care, you're going to want to have private health insurance because it's the private hospitals that operate the better standard of ambulance service. I haven't had to use an ambulance, so I'm only speaking from what I've been advised. That's something that if you're coming to Paraguay, I'd suggest that you do your own due diligence and research. It always needs to be remembered that in Paraguay, things can change very significantly from one department to the next. So how things roll here in the Qroo region is not necessarily how it would roll in other parts of the country. The good news is that if you want quality healthcare, whether it be dental or medical, in our experience, you can find it. I think sometimes there's a tendency for the echo chamber to report that all things are just dire in a country like Paraguay, and you're going to end up with sheep walking up the aisles and cattle eating your lunch, but it's not necessarily the case. But having said that, some of the public hospitals, as I understand, are pretty basic. So if you do want quality health care and hospital care, probably want to opt for a private hospital. Thankfully, the costs here are nothing like they would be in a lot of other countries, so that is affordable for many people. We tend to hop online, get onto the social media forums. Inevitably, someone will have a bad experience to talk about. The Karens out there will often add to that, and before you know it, they've whipped up this theory that you're living in a place where if you go into a hospital or go for dental, it's going to be a complete disaster. You'll go in to get an appendix removed and you'll leave with your thumb amputated and your head cut off. But in reality, it's like any social media forum. These things are often overblown, misconstrued, misrepresented. Sometimes people have got agendas, or they just haven't got anything better going on, so they just make up stuff. People can have a skewed perspective and understanding about the realities that they're going to face. There's no question that in Paraguay there would be medical misadventures, but we need to also keep in mind that that's not confined to Paraguay. I personally have had a couple of quite significant medical misadventures in countries that I've previously lived in that consider themselves to have superior standards to a place like Paraguay. So to say that we just need to be careful about what we listen to and keep everything in context. If we're going to be living here, we have to come to terms with this and get our heads around it. Sure, use social media and use whatever other forums there are to get that advice. Social media is a great servant, but a terrible master. So I wouldn't necessarily take the first recommendation or the first claim, and I wouldn't listen to everything I hear on there. But definitely you're going to get some good tips and It'll give you a good starting point. Moving to a new country can be a great way to have a health reset. If you cut out the fags, cut down on the alcohol, lose some weight, do some exercise, and try and avoid being involved in any global health experiments, hopefully you'll live forever. But the good news is if you do have to access medical or dental, you can do it. Don't just assume that it's going to be on a platter. You're going to have to go look for it. But I just wanted to give people the assurance that you can find quality health and dental care. It is accessible here, not a problem. I can thankfully say that I believe that we've traded up in terms of the level of care that we're getting here and definitely the price. I would hate to think what it would be costing us if we needed to have these interventions that I spoke about earlier. The topic of dentists and doctors are definitely not on the top of my fun list. I had a reasonable doctor back in a place I once called home, but I tended to have a fallout with him when I questioned an experiment that was being conducted in various places a few years ago. I hope you heard me over the rainy weather that we're having here. To have some rain, it's no problem to me. I love it. It really greens up the place, and it's been a short, sharp winter. It's been quite cold in parts actually, but I love the change. And people sometimes ask me how I cope with the weather here, and my response is, for the most part, I just ignore it because you can't change it, and weather's weather. To our friends out there who are in the parts of America that are really getting smashed at the moment, our prayers go out to you. We hope you're staying safe and well. I look forward to seeing those of you that we've met since being in Paraguay when you get down here next time. And hopefully when you do, the weather will be great. Until next time, take care. Ciao.